welcome back, man. Another Monday. Y'all know what time it is. F1 Monday, man. What made Juan Manuel Fangio Great? Shout out to man Josh again, dropping another banger. We often check out the oldest F1 champion of all time. I think he was like 46, 47. So I was like, you can't just be known just off the guy who's the oldest F1 champ, which he probably is. At the same time, he had to have a solid career, right? So we often check it out. We often see what made him great. Hope you guys are doing well. I did see the Mazepin news. I call him Mazepin. I did see the Mazepin news. That is a bit unfortunate though. They did get fired just because of what's going on over between Russia and Ukraine. As you guys know, that's been a very, very big thing going on. I have been keeping track of it. Regarding Mazepin does suck. I don't really know. I don't want to say anything wrong, so I'm not going to really say too much. But it does suck for Mazepin. But at the same time, it's been happening a lot regarding a lot of Russian athletes, stuff like that. Like we were seeing them, I think we see in soccer, like they've been the Russian teams have been banned from competing in European competition, stuff like that. So it does, it is what it is. But at the same time, that's it. That's it. But hopefully he has found somebody else to help Schumacher. Plus, Mazepin sucked anyway, so I don't think it'll be that big of a miss. But hopefully he can find somebody to help out Mazepin. They got a couple. They gotta find somebody quick, right? The season starts in the next week or two, so they gotta find somebody quick. But anyway, hope you guys enjoy the video. Let's go and get started. Let's see what's talking about.
So on July 29th, it was a slightly special occasion. It was Fernando Alonso.
Also, I see that Buddy got kidnapped. Fangio got kidnapped. I ain't watched the video. I see a title of it, so I'm like, what?
Birthday. The dude had turned 40 years old and everyone was waxing lyrical about him. And why not? The dude is still killing it today. Which prompted Tomo to query whether anyone else in Formula 1 history had driven this well into their 40s. Now, there are a few examples of this for sure, but one that immediately came to mind, as it did for a few others, was Fangio.
Fernando Alonso is that old?
Fangio came from an era that doesn't compare to today's. Like this dude, who claimed that Fangio's feats were pretty meh, as he achieved them against old princes and other 50-year-olds.
Okay.
You disrespectful little shit. No. I'm not taking that. Now, yes, there were some drivers in the series who were in their 50s at the very, very, very beginning of Formula 1, with the likes of Louis Chiron and Luigi Fagioli. And the Prince of Siam did pursue Grand Prix racing whenever he wasn't playing hide the sausage in an Armour ditch, but all these people still could drive. And good on you for cherry picking to fit your narrative. But there is a reason why the name Fangio is synonymous with greatness. Now, of course, Fangio was racing back in the days of black and white television, if you even had one, which automatically writes him off for a lot of people. The sport was relatively new back then, and the competition wasn't all that serious, given almost none of them were full-time professionals. Well, at what point did the competition in the sport become serious? Although...
So back then, there was a lot of just part-time drivers. It seemed like it was still growing, but I know, it was growing, so it wasn't as big as it is now. But like I said, there's still some good drivers back there, and that's the only thing regarding eras in sports. You see in basketball, American football, F1 and other sports. You can't really compare eras from now to back then, because driving was different, cars were different, tracks were different, everything was different. The stuff they was doing back then, I highly doubt they aren't really applying to it now. Probably a small bit, if that. But you can't, that's what I'm saying, comparing eras is hard. So you can't really say, one guy may say Mickey Hackney's the best driver he's ever seen, but one guy may say Lewis Hamilton's the best driver they've seen, or Verstappen or Schumacher, stuff like that. It's hard to compare. Yeah, I know Hakkinen, Schumacher's era wasn't 10, 20 years apart, but if you were to say this guy in the 50s or 40s was the greatest driver, that's your personal opinion. But it's always hard to compare eras because it was so different.
Look at Fangio back then. That is the peak of human athleticism. And hey, if you want to talk
My
about
man
how
look
different
like
the
he
era
just-
was to today, let's do just that.
He's not even
We
shape.
know what the current day Formula One competition entails. We know how fast the cars are.
That's what I'm
we know
saying.
the strength and conditioning
Cars weren't that
required to
fast back
sustain
then.
5G in a corner, or 51G at cops, and how all the drivers today are paid professionals and yada yada yada. And there's no reason to kick all of that to the curb. But Fangio raced in a time where you had virtually no protective equipment, barring some headwear that may protect you from some leaves, and there was no power steering, given this was of course 1950s Grand Prix racing. Today's cars may have quite a bit more power than they had, but I mean, for f***'s sake, we're talking about the 1950s. There was nothing in the way of electronic aids. The tyres were cross-ply and loved to shred over the course of a race, which was great fun when hurling along in a car with crap loads of power, but virtually knows the course of a race. Which was great way of electronic aids. The tyres were cross-ply and loved to shred over the course of a race, which was great fun when hurling along in a car with crap loads of power, but virtually no stopping ability on tracks which had plenty of nature and spectators and houses to slam into, and drivers sometimes didn't compete with seatbelts, preferring to be flung from the car into...
Wait. This crash happened in a historic race in 2000. This ain't no 2000. My man airborne. Oh shoot. Yo, hopefully he's fine. Yo. That's crazy.
Whatever was around.
Yeah, that's a crazy picture. Thank God he
survived. Had a bloody
survived.
waiting list back then.
That's a
Races
crazy
today last
ass
an hour and a
picture.
half. Cute. Try 3.5. And because of the physical nature of driving those burdens, they would often end the race with blistered hands and a face full of soot and dead bugs, provided
Ew.
you finished the race, or even survived it. I can go on all day about this stuff, but to compare the eras in the way that people have is asinine. To belittle
Thank
that
you.
period of
That's
time
what I was
is an
saying.
insult
You
to the
can't.
sport. One of the other arguments I've seen is that Fangio is racing against old dudes and farmers and princes. Ironically, Fangio is one of the oldest drivers on that grid. He won his last world championship at the age of 46 and wasn't a great deal younger than the oldest F1 driver of all time, Louis Chiron, who raced once at the age of 55. But I mean, hey, slandering Chiron isn't something we're going to do today
55?
either. A lot of the big names that you'd see back then, Hawthorne, Moss, Brooks, Collins, they were all in the early 20s back then. And hey look, we can look back on a few of his races, but the one that sticks out as his best, and one of the greatest drives in motor racing ever, was the 1957 German Grand Prix.
I'm not even going to pronounce that.
Today, the Nürburgring is a pretty formidable fortress nestled within the Eiffel mountain range. But back then, it had the same kind of mortality rate as a de Havilland aircraft. Heading into this round of the World Championship, Fangio was leading the standings and could theoretically win the title if he won the race. He took the pole by 2.8 seconds in qualifying, which sounds quite unserious, but bear in mind, this track was over 14 miles long in a time where how big your cojones were made all the difference. And so, being on pole, driving the brilliant Maserati 250F, and on his favourite track, Fangio was looking set to walk it. He built up a 30-second lead by the time of the first pit stop, but after a bungled pit stop with the tyres, he came out of the pit lane 50 seconds behind the Ferraris of Mike Hawthorne and Peter Collins. For a little bit, he pondered over what he was going to do before eventually deciding, screw it. Or so it seemed, because over the remaining 10 laps, he broke the lap record 9 times in a bid to catch the leaders. I mean, to put it in perspective, this was the lap record of the Nürburgring, set incidentally by him, in the previous year's German Grand Prix. But when he started to hunt down the Ferraris up ahead, this was the time he posted, with a lap and a half.
I couldn't, was that like 9 minutes? To complete, that's damn near, what was that, like 9:41? That's damn near, what, 10 minutes to finish a lap. Oh my gosh, yeah, I couldn't watch. I could not watch at all. I couldn't, man. Like, I'm dozing off after the first couple laps. Like, if I had watched that, oh my god, 3.5 hours. Yeah, I see.
Fangio had completely destroyed the lead of Hawthorne.
But he's going crazy though.
On the freaking grass at this circuit, went on through to win the race and his 5th world title. This was one of just many great drives by Fangio, and the results speak for themselves. Yeah, he always found himself in the best car, but as Sir Sterling Moss pointed out, he was there because he was the best. Every manufacturer knew that the easiest and cheapest way to win was to sign Fangio, and this is kind of an historical precedence that is carried over onto modern times. Does that diminish what these men achieved? No, of Of course it doesn't. So bearing in mind all of what we've covered, we know that he was a great driver.
So just
was
on
he the greatest?
Fangio.
To that I say, there is no GOAT. As I mentioned before, these times were so different from what they are today.
Exactly.
There's little that you can legitimately compare. You don't have to rank drivers on an all-time basis. You can just appreciate them for what they've achieved in their time. Hamilton is the greatest of his era, Schumacher was the greatest of his one, and Fangio was the best of his. Overall though, he meant a great deal to the world of motor racing, and to the people of his home nation in Argentina.
Fangio is not only a name. When you say Juan Manuel Fangio, it doesn't matter who you are talking to, what their age is, or whether they have ever heard of Formula 1. That name does stick. In a country where the passion for F1 dwindles every day, the legend that is El Chueco still remains fresh as the day he won his last Grand Prix. 110 years after his birth, there are many places still named after him in Buenos Aires City. There is a statue that stands in...
Are there even... I don't even know if there are even any Argentine F1 drivers. What was the last one? I couldn't really tell you any F1 drivers. You know what I mean? I know we have one this year, but...
in the Mercedes-Benz Museum in Stuttgart, in the streets of Monaco, and in Buenos Aires.
Oh my god, legend.
Every year, thousands of people go to the Fangio Museum in his hometown of Balcarce, not only to live the legacy, but the present. With donations like a signed Lewis Hamilton helmet next to the cars he used to take 5 championships with: Mercedes, Alfa Romeo, Maserati, and Lancia, and others like a McLaren MP4/2 and an Arrows. The mark he left in the Argentinian people made the day of his death, July 17th, the official motor racing day across the country. He is the only local champion to date.
That's
as recently as 2019, there was an official model car collection launched that honored his racing legacy, complete with not only his 5 champion cars, but the Le Mans cars he competed in, alongside Froilán González, Sterling Moss, Louis Rosier, the multiple Mille Emilias, and many, many more. The aura of Fangio still roams the streets to this day, and the legacy that a kid from Balcarce who liked cars left, no one could have ever imagined. Back to you, Josh.
That I could not have said better myself. Mainly because I ain't Argentinian. I know, shocking, right?
That's pretty, yeah. Juan, yeah. That man Fangio, he's a stud. Obviously, like I said, to do what he did back then, especially that German Grand Prix, just to storm back off a freaking pit collapse, like a pit issue. That's a legend. That's a legend. I don't think we. I think my only thing is I don't think we really learn about his start to his finish. So that was my only complaint, but you can just do that with just a swipe on Google, type his name in. But very, very interesting though. I do like that man Fangio, my bad. Anyway, don't forget to like the video and stuff as well. Comment down below your thoughts and reactions. We'll see you guys later.